What's going on? This is Ryan with Automatic Comics, and up next we are going to do a recap of the first day from this big Heritage Platinum or Signature comic auction. There were some big sales, some big upside surprises, some big disappointments, lots of cool books. Let's check these out. So before we get started, please remember to hit that like button and hit the subscribe button if you'd like to see more content like this. So if you watched my video just from a couple days ago, earlier this week, I talked about the books that really caught my attention that were coming up in this signature auction. And today we had that first day of sales, and some of those books sold, some of those books sell on Saturday. But I thought it would be fun to talk about some of the big books that sold, some of the ones that really outperformed, the ones that surprised me. And I've got a big list of books. I don't know if we'll get through all of them or not. I hope you enjoyed this video, see some cool books, and maybe this helps give you an idea of the high-end comic market, because these are the big books. These are the expensive ones. All right, so let's get into these sales. So what we've got right here is basically this like overview screen that Heritage provides at the end of a session, when a session completes. And you see it's got a countdown to when the next one starts. And one of the things I really like to do with this is I like to, one, see what the total auction numbers were. And you can see here that so far in these first two sessions, everything is sold for a little over $5 million, $5,077,656. The other kind of fun thing you can do is you can look here and you can order things by the sales price, and you can see what the big items sold for. Like, what were the most expensive things in this auction? You can see this Tales of Suspense 39 individual art or original art page, the Superman #1, this Frank Miller original art, the All-Star 8, Batman 1, Marvel Comics 1, Captain America 1, that kind of stuff. Like, you can see all the really cool big stuff right off the bat, what it went for. But before I get into any of these individual sales, I just want to give my perspective on how the sale overall did. And I was watching 58 books in this first two sessions. And so it means like I had put those all on the watch list. I'd priced them out beforehand so then I could check how they performed after the fact. And for those 58 books that I was watching, this was a really solid auction. I had 33 of them beat my estimates. So 33 out of the 58 beat my estimates. That's 57% beat my estimates. Anything above 50%, I consider that to be a strong auction. It means more beat what I expected than didn't. Then for the books that really beat my expectations, so the ones that were beat it by 20% or more, I had 16 out of 58. That's 28%. That is solid. Then the ones that failed to meet my expectations by 20% or more was just 7 out of 58, just 12%. So again, these are strong numbers. These are numbers that, to me, say that this has been a solid auction so far. Then when we go to the actual total sales for the books that I was watching, for the ones that I was watching, my estimates were 2.44 million, 2,440,000. And what I actually saw was 2.46 million, 2,460,000. So within 1% of, they ended up selling for what I expected. Now you're going to have high sales, you're going to have low sales. So the wins and losses kind of can average out with that. But overall, this tells me books were selling for around what I was expecting them to. We had some really solid wins. We had a lower number of losses, and overall just seemed like a pretty strong auction, which I didn't know how this was going to go coming in. I never know. I don't adjust these to try to make it seem like something's better than what it is. And I just report the numbers that I see. And this was a very strong auction, especially since I think people have been a little nervous coming into the close of the year, but this was a good one. Now let's get into these sales though. So the first one I wanted to talk about is actually just this Don Heck Tales of Suspense #39 original art page. The reason being that this was a massive sale. This was the biggest original art sale page sale, at least recorded on Heritage, for a Tales of Suspense #39 page by about 50%. And so if you're wondering how you can kind of price out or help to price out original art, Heritage's sold listings, or the Heritage sold listings, are a great resource because they keep all that information. And so I just got that here just in case you're ever interested in original art, you want to look that kind of stuff up. You can go to their sold listings, and then you can search for example, in this case, Tales of Suspense 39 original art. Heritage is very consistent about how it labels its listings. So if you use things like this, you'll be able to find those sales pretty easily. And then I just ordered them in price from highest to lowest. And you can see highest sale was the one that sold in this auction, $336,000. The next one, $228,000, and that was from last year for page 12. We had $216,000 for page 13 from last year. And then we've got some other things that don't link in correctly. They do the best they can. But then we've got like this page 4, $132,000 from this year. Page 2, $120,000 from this year. I mean, this was a really strong sale. It's a cool page. You know, you've got Iron Man in his outfit on there. You know, I mean, it's got multiple panels with him, or Iron Man in his uniform on there. You've got multiple panels with him on there. I mean, it's a great page, but it's not like, I mean, I'd say page 12 is better. I like page 12 a little bit better, I think. But I mean, still, it's a great page, and that just shows that this was a strong sale. And this was early on, I believe, in the auction. This is one of the first things that sold. Let's see. Yeah, this was the 7th item that sold. So 9100, or 6th item that sold, 91006. So this was early on. You know, maybe that helps set the tone for how this auction is going to go. But so we talked about that one. Now let's check out some of these other books. There have been some big wins, some big losses. I'm actually going to start with the one of the books I talked about in my prior video, this All-Star Comics number 8. This is that first Wonder Woman. This is actually a pretty strong sale. It went for around what I thought. I had it going for 167,500. I think in my video I said 165 to 170, so I just kind of cut that in half. And so beat my estimate by 7%, which is about as good as you can hope to do. I mean, that means it basically sold for around what I expected. But 180,000, I mean, I wasn't really sure, just because we have seen this book trending down basically ever since that first Wonder Woman movie. That first Wonder Woman movie is where we saw the big peak sales. This one had a $200,000 sale around there, and it has been generally trending down since then. And this was a nice trend back up compared to other sales I've seen. So I felt like 180,000 was a strong sale. Then right after that, we had one of the more disappointing sales of this auction. And this was the Batman number 1. And to me, I mean, one of the big takeaways from this is just there is too much risk to send books to CBCS to get graded. This, I mean, a 4.5 going for 180,000. I don't care what you say. This was about CBCS, about, you know, Batman 1s, like a bunch of them coming up for sale. Like, this was a big underperformer. I had this one going for 240,000, and I was even really lowballing, I felt, with that based on what a CGC 4.5 would go for. And this still underperformed by 25%. And so now there are a couple things. I think one of the things that really hurt it was this label note, cover reattached with archival tape. I think that caused some confusion for people, specifically the archival. I think some people thought the archival meant that it would be a restored book. That is not the case. This would not be a restored book. But cover reattached, that, if it's a CGC book, the most you're going to get with that is a 4.0. And so this is where it is very important to know that there are grading differences between CGC and CBCS. I've talked about this before. I have people always try to tell me that CBCS grades harsher than CGC. That is not the case. There are sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. They are generally very close, but the max grade you will get with a detached cover, because that is how tape is treated by CGC. You would pretend like the tape is not there and what flaw it would be. And so it would be a detached cover, would be the max would be a 4.0. And so if you went on, but even if you said this was like a 3.0, this was still a steal, in my opinion, for this book. I think that this was, I mean, let's take a look at a Batman number 1 4.5. So if we've got Batman number 1, and here we go, like a 4.5 last year sold for 345,000. 4.0 sold last year for 264,000. Now we have been seeing a lot of them come up for sale, so you could say that's going to pull prices down some. Like the 3.5 we've seen trend down, the 2.5 we've seen trend down. But I mean, the 3.0 even 2 years ago, 192,000. I mean, even if you felt like this was like a worst case scenario, like this is a nice looking book. This is a really nice presenting copy. And I was kind of joking with some people that this was a murder scene and the victim was CBCS. I mean, this is a big disappointment. And for me, it would just be like, you either have to fixed price sell a CBCS book or you just don't send them there, because this was a huge, huge underperformer. Probably the biggest, in terms of the scale of the book, underperformer of the auction. But let's go on to the next one. Next one is the Captain America #1. Now, this was a strong sale. I had this book going for 120,000, and I was not going to be surprised if it went low, because this isn't a great presenting copy. It's all complete. It's not like it's missing any big pieces or anything, but it has a lot of color fade, especially in the red. And a lot of times that really hurts the value of the book. Now, this wasn't a record for the book. The record was 144,000. But like I said, with other sales I've seen in other grades, I felt like this would go for around 120 and went for 126. So, I mean, right around in line, but one of those where it still, to me, was a little surprising on the high side, just because I would not have been surprised if it went lower. Now, there was one other CBCS book, a big CBCS book that sold in this one, and that was the Marvel Comics #1. This restored copy went for 144,000. This one went right around what I thought. I thought it was going to go for 150 and went for 144. So this one actually performed pretty well. I know some people, I think, were expecting it to go higher. I probably hit it more just because of the CBCS case. And so that's why I got a little bit closer. But this one wasn't bad. This one actually was pretty close. I mean, when you're at 144 and you estimate 150, that is, when you're talking about books that sell a couple times a year and a restored book and trying to guess that's about as good as you can hope to get. So felt like this one did pretty well. Now, one of the big upside surprises came one sale later, and that was this More Fun Comics #73. This is that first appearance of Aquaman, Speedy, and Green Arrow. And so this is a 6.5 that I had going for 95,000, and it went for 120,000. Now, again, this isn't a record. The record in grade was 192,000, but we've had a few other sales since then. And so record and grade doesn't, I've had to have that conversation with some people. Like, the prices of these books, they don't always go up. You're going to have fluctuations, especially with mega expensive, big key grail type books. I think some people think that just because it's a really big key that they're extremely safe investments, and that's not necessarily the case. You can have some pretty wild swings. You have to be aware of what you're paying for things. And a lot of times when I see a big sale that's an outsized sale, I always want to see a confirmation of that sale. And I've seen other sales since then that did not confirm that $192,000 sale. And so that's why I had this one priced at 95, but went for 120. So beat my estimate by 26%. I felt like this was a strong one. It's a nice looking copy, really bright colors. The only thing that's too bad is somebody, you can tell, tried to erase this pencil on the cover, and they did not do a good job. They ended up lifting a lot of the color and everything. I don't know if this was a kid at some point, if this was somebody that was, maybe 30 years ago. I mean, if it was somebody recent, that's too bad. They really hurt the visual appeal of that book with that. But yeah, that's why you have to be really careful trying to erase on color. And you need to know what you're doing, and you can actually, damage the book otherwise. But otherwise, I mean, the reds are incredible on this copy, and the blues and everything are incredible. So it's a very solid presenting copy, and just has that one kind of like defect there that hurts a little bit, but had a big sale with that. So 120,000. Now, one of the ones this was probably the biggest surprise to me. I could not believe that this next book held up from that last sale that it had. This is Richie Rich #1. This is a book I kind of made fun of the sale on this one when there was an auction earlier this year with a Richie Rich #1 9.6. There's actually 4 of these out there. There's no 9.8s. I think there's 4 of these 9.6s. And that record sale was 108,000. I didn't think it would get anywhere close to that. I thought that was going to be like a big outsized sale, and then you're going to have another sale come up that's going to be much lower. And that's what I'm talking about with confirmation sales. You want to see a confirmation sale at 96,000. I mean, that shows this book is around $100,000 book. Yeah, it's down a little bit from that record, but I thought this would be going around 65, which I still think is crazy for a Richie Rich #1, like a property that nobody really cares about. It's not his first appearance, anything like that. And I was just, this one surprises me. Anytime I see a book like this go for this kind of number. And so this one beat my estimate by 48%. I did not believe that this book would get up to these types of numbers, and it did. And so, I mean, more power to you, Richie Rich. I guess there's a few people out there with a ton of money that want this book, and I don't understand it. Now, one of the books that underperformed across the board, there are 3 copies that have sold so far, 4 copies total in this auction, was the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #1. This is the first print. And so when I say there are 3 or 4 copies, there are 4 first prints, and 3 of them have sold already. And all of them sold for around 20% under what I thought they would. Now, this one is tough because it's a signed copy, it's a file copy, and it's got a lot of drawing on it. I mean, you've got all 4 turtles on the side here. You've got on the back, you have Casey Jones. I don't know if that's supposed to be April O'Neil, maybe. And you've got Splinter and Shredder. And so there's a lot on this cover. And so it's going to be a pretty niche item because some people like me, I prefer the no signatures on this book. I like it without the signatures. I like the look of it without the signatures. On the back is actually kind of cool, having that space filled in. I don't have a big problem with that. But I had this one going for 48,000. I'm not really surprised it went lower, but because it has really been trending down. But I mean, this is a pretty big underperformer. Like I said, about 20%. And there were 2 other copies that sold. We had the 92156. We had a 94 that went for 22,200. I had this one estimated at 28,000, and then its record was 46,500. So I mean, you can see how much this book has retreated. This was one of the ones that was a big outperformer during the comic boom, and it's definitely been coming back. And then one sale later, we had a 9.2 that went for 16,800. I thought it would go for 20,000, and so across the board, those 3 books all underperformed about 20%. Now let's check out one of the other books that I talked about in my prior video. And this one was a really solid sale. This was that Astonishing 30. So 92007. This is Astonishing 30. This, eyeball melting on the cover thing, went for 36,000. I said that I thought it might go for 25 to 30, but I wouldn't be surprised even if it went for like 50. I mean, this was one where the highest grade that had ever sold publicly was an 8.0. This is the single highest grade on the census. This is a monster book and a big key for Atlas pre-code horror. So this just confirmed, good stuff is still selling for big numbers. There's a lot of demand out there still for it. This beat my estimate by 31%. This was a strong performing book. And yeah, I thought that there would be a bidding war for this one. I kind of joked that if it was still sitting at 11,000, what it was sitting at a couple days ago, I would have been buying it. And this is exactly why. I mean, this is the type of number I would expect to see. I'm not real surprised by it, but yeah, it helps it puts a value on what that top end book is going to go for. Now there was another big pre-code horror book that sold soon after this that also had a big sale. And that was the Black Cat Mystery #50. This, the classic white heat cover, dude's face is being melted off by this radium thing here. And I had this one going for 19,000, sold for 21,600, beat my estimate by 14%. Again, not one that really surprises me. I mean, this is one of the books for pre-code horror collectors, and this is a nice presenting 6.5. And so, yeah, I mean, but just a strong sale. I mean, just again, like the keys, strong sale. And, even though it's beat my estimates, it's not a huge surprise. Now, one other pre-code horror, because I'm just going to cover a few of the pre-code horror books all at once that really performed well, is this one here, this Eerie Comics #1. I talked about this one in my video. I had this one going for 20,000. Its prior record, which was only a year or 2 ago, was 14,400. This has doubled in just about a year. This was a big, strong sale, beat my estimate by 44%. And again, it's one of those where it's not like a huge surprise because it is a tough book in grade, but this is a strong sale. I mean, this is what I'm talking about. It's not like there were just deals all over the place in this auction. There were big sales. There were people out here spending money. And yeah, there were deals in here. I mean, like I said, like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles going down, you know, the Batman #1, but like some of these books had some really solid, strong sales. Now, it wasn't all of them. You know, it definitely wasn't all of them. There were some underperformers, but this one was strong. Now, one of the most surprising underperforming books to me was this one, Captain America Comics #27. This one went for $33,600. We had the Promise Collection copy sell about 2 years ago for $45,600. That one was like a cream to off-white pages copy. This is a white pages copy. I'm surprised. I really felt like this went low. Now, I don't know if it was whatever's going on up in this corner here that really kind of like turned people off. Like it's something that's like a visual thing that draws your eye to it. And maybe that's why. But man, like a 9.0 white pages, top of census. I'm almost certain this is, yeah, 3 and 9.0. And this is probably the only white page copy. I wouldn't be surprised if this isn't the only white, or I wouldn't be surprised if this is the only white page copy. And I just think like this was a deal. Now, there is always that concern that like a 9.2 or a 9.4 or 9.6, 9.8 is going to pop up and maybe that hurts the value here. But I think whoever bought this got a great deal. I think this was other than maybe the Batman one, this was, and maybe even more so, this was one of the buys of the auction. I think this was one of the best buys of this entire auction. Failed to meet my estimate by 29%. This was one of those ones that went well below my estimate. And I think this was a great pickup by whoever got that book. Now, one of the other books that really underperformed, but it was not like it was an easy book to price, was this one here, Fight Comics #44. This is a 9.8. I believe it's the single highest graded. Yeah, it's 1 and 9.8. So single highest graded copy. Pretty popular comic from this Fight Comics run. Just you know, one of those kind of crazy covers. And it had never sold before, so it's not like it's easy to predict, but a lot of times I'll see books like this kind of go for the mid-teens. And so I had it at 15,000 and went for 9,300. Now, one of the reasons might be that it doesn't have the best color strike. This Fight Comics or Fiction House Comics, a lot of times they'll have a lot of variation in their color strike. And so sometimes this will be kind of like a deep orange, and this is a lighter orange. I don't think it's fading. I don't think it's anything like that. I think it's just the color strike. It's just, it is known with this publisher. And so I felt like this was a pretty good deal, but it's tough. I mean, it failed to meet my estimate by 38%, but when it's never sold before, it's the single highest graded. It's really hard to know for sure, but it felt low to me. Going for under 10 grand for the highest graded copy. Yeah, I mean, this felt like a good buy. I think that this was a good pickup. Now, one book that was really interesting to see 2 copies of come up, because you do not see this book sell very often, was Marvel Mystery Comics #46. I believe it's referred to as the Pickle Hitler cover. As you can see, you've got Hitler on the cover. He's green, kind of looks like a pickle. And it's a World War II cover. You've got you've got Japanese and German representation on this propaganda cover. You've got the bondage stuff, the good girl art. You got Human Torch coming in, punching people. You've got some crazy like torture device. This one has pretty much everything you're looking for with a World War II Schomburg timely cover. Because yeah, this is obviously Schomburg. I mean, just with everything that's going on in this cover, this is an Alex Schomburg cover. Now, this one went for almost exactly what I thought it would. I had this one going for 45,000, which was a huge record. The last record in grade was $23,000. So, and I don't remember exactly when that sold. So let's check that out. Marvel Mystery number 46. So this was a, what was this? This was a 7.5 and a white pages copy. So 7.5 last sold 8 years ago, 23,000 in 2015. We had a 6.5 go for 41,400. We had a 4.0 go for 15,600. But this one was it just went exactly where I thought it would. Like I said, I thought it'd go for 45,000 or 45.6, but strong presenting copy. Now, the interesting thing was, and I feel like maybe this was FOMO afterwards, where people were like, the people who missed out on this one that were bidding for this one fought for the 6.0. The 6.0 sold right after, and it's a nice looking copy. It is a very comparable looking copy. It's got some kind of like tanning stuff going in the upper right corner, or dust shadow maybe, but really nice looking copy. Went for 38,400. So if you look back here, I mean, you can see like 6.0 sold just last year for 31,566. So that was a jump for this book. I was not expecting this one to go this big. I'm not surprised, but I had it going for 31,000, beat my estimate by 24%. I mean, this was a strong sale, and I feel like it was because those two books sold back to back. That was a big driver in the sale price for this book, because you had a lot of people that were probably bidding on that 7.5. Somebody ended up winning it, and then you had it was probably not just two people going after it, and then you had multiple people then that really wanted a copy, because like I said, this one just doesn't come up that often, especially not in a nice condition like this. And so yeah, that resulted in a big sale. Now, a couple other pre-code horror books that had some strong sales. We had this Secret Diary of Eerie Adventures. And yeah, you know, people might say I'm pushing this because I got a copy myself, but yes, I do have a copy of this one. And so I was happy to see this sale. This was a big sale. This is not top of census either or anything like that. There are two higher. So there's 2 and a 7.0 with 2 higher, 14,400 for a 7.0. I had this going for 12,000. So this beat my estimate by 20%. Strong sale. This is a extremely rare book. There are not very many copies of this book out there, and this was a big sale for it. Now, this is a pretty nice looking copy. It does have the flaws on it. You know, it's a 7.0. It's got some creasing up here. It's got a little bit of creasing down here. I don't know. I might have maybe put it more like a 6.5, but still, it's a very solid presenting copy. No big flaws in the middle or anything like that. It is a strong presenting book. It is the highest grade of this book that's ever sold publicly. I think prior to that, the highest was a 5.5. And so, and that one went for like 8,500 or something. So 14,400, big sale for this book. Now, another pretty cool book that came up for sale was this one here. And this one was a slight disappointment. It went 11% below my estimate. I had it going for 15,500, went for 13,800. This is War Against Crime number 10. And if you're not familiar with this is the first appearance of the Vault Keeper, first appearance of the Vault of Horror. And it's a 9/8 Gaines file copy. So if you're not familiar with EC Comics, there are 9/8 of just about every single one of those books, because these Gaines file copies exist. There's a lot of 9/8s, 9/6s, 9/4s. There tend to be a lot of these really high grade copies, but I think this one went low. I think this is another one that was probably a pretty good buy by whoever picked it up. These file copies, these EC file copies, have been getting hotter and hotter, and to have one actually go under its record, which was 16,800 and lower than what I thought it would, 15,500. I think this was a pretty good pickup for whoever grabbed that book. Now, another one that felt like it was a little bit of a disappointment, but it's tough to say for sure, was this Zip Comics number 22. Now, I had this one going for 19,000. Its record was 19,200. It was actually the same copy that had sold, I think, earlier this year, and somebody either somebody didn't pay or they decided to put it back up for sale, and went for 14,400. So was about 22 or 23% below my estimate. Now, the reason I say that it's a little tough is that this is there's some definite fading to this cover. This usually, I believe, tends to be more of a purple color, and it's a little deeper orange up in the zip in the top bar. So it definitely has that lack of visual appeal going with it, but it was the same copy that sold for 19,200. So that's why I felt like this was a kind of a bit of a disappointment for this book. But there was a bound volume that also included this copy, and I'm going to talk about those bound volumes next, because I thought those were pretty cool. So they had these bound volumes, a bunch of these that sold. So somebody must have had just a big collection of them. There were these MLJs. So that's the Archie, basically the precursor to Archie publisher. And they just had bound volumes of just about everything. And you can see this is what you expect this book to look like. And so you can see a lot deeper oranges on the top here, the purple on the V, kind of the blue Nazi soldier guy. And I think that this bound volume actually went for a pretty decent price. Like I had it estimated right around 4,500 and went right around 4,500. And I think that from what I saw with these bound volumes, my opinion, I think people were way overpaying for these bound volumes. Now I know that the volumes in the listings, they said that the comics have not been trimmed prior to binding, but I wouldn't trust that. I mean, I get it that it's stated there, but I would always, if I was buying a bound volume book, I would always assume that there is some trimming. You know, I don't know, like it's always possible something gets missed. I would always assume there'd be trimming. I would never pay a price of a untrimmed book for a bound volume book. And so, and that's what people seemed like they were doing. They were paying full value for these books, and they were assuming probably that they're going to, you know, take this book apart and they're going to get it graded and they're going to get, you know, universal label, and maybe they will, but that's a big risk, in my opinion. Because one of the biggest surprises to me was one that sold a little before this one. And that was this right here. This is a bound volume with Pep Comics 19 to 24. And if you are not familiar with this, that means that this includes this number 20, which is one of the most famous kind of like Nazi type covers from the Pep Comics run. But more importantly, it has this one, which is the first appearance of Archie. And this is a very expensive book, but went for $43,200. This is basically paying full value, in my opinion, for this book as an unrestored copy. And so that's a lot of risk. I mean, it's still, they are really cool books. They are very rare books. I mean, you've got second appearance of Archie here. I think this is like the fourth appearance, maybe something like that, with this one. And so, I mean, these are really cool books. These are rare books. They do have a lot of value, but I feel like people were paying full unrestored value. And that's, to me, is just a big risk when you're talking about a bound book. I mean, there's always glue and that kinds of stuff on the spine. So the spines are going to get really torn up if you're trying to disassemble these books. So just I don't know, my opinion, big risk there. Now, I'm not just talking about Golden Age books here. We got lots of other stuff that sold too. And I'm going to start with that Amazing Fantasy 15 that I talked about in the prior video. Let's see here. That's this one here. Yep. So here's the Amazing Fantasy 15. I think I said I thought this one would go for 65,000. Went for 66,000. I mean, it went for right around what I thought it would go for, and so no big surprises there. But yeah, I mean, just Amazing Fantasy 15, always in demand book. First appearance of Spider-Man, went for around what I thought it would. Another book that went right around what I thought was that really cool Batman number. And I wasn't trying to make a joke with the cool, but Batman number 121, first appearance of Mr. Freeze. I had this one going for 70,000, went for 72,000. So, this is one of those cases where, I did that rough estimate where the last time this book had sold was like 2009. And so I took other books in other grades that had sold in 2009 versus what they were selling for today, did a multiplier, applied that here. Like this book had sold for about 7,000 in 2009. The other grades had gone up about 10x in that time period. And so I thought this one would go for around 70, and it's exactly what it did. So 72,000, solid sale for this book. I said I wouldn't have been surprised if maybe it went low, but I mean, this was a strong sale. Shows there is that definite demand for those high-end Batman Silver Age keys. Then we had some Bronze Age books too. We had a giant size X-Men number 1 and a 9.8. Let's see, 92141. And so this one went for, again, right around what I thought it would. I had this one going for 25,000, went for 25,200. So really just right in line. No big surprises there with that one. Now I didn't check the edge on this. A lot of times this book takes damage in the slab on the right edge. But this one looks good. I don't see any like folds on the right edge in here. That's something you always have to be really careful of with this book, is for whatever reason, CGC slabs seem to damage this book on the right edge. So just always check that if you're buying a copy of this one. But yeah, went for what I thought it would. Then we had a Hulk #1. So let's jump into some Silver Age. We had a Hulk #1, 6.0, sold for 33,000. This one was, I think, the only one I got exactly right. I had this one going for 33,000, went for 33,000. Is it a nice looking 6.0? I mean, really nice color strike. It's got the wear and everything that makes it a 6.0, but really solid looking book. Then sticking with Hulk, we also had a 9.8 181. I had this one going for 68,000, went for 66,000. So again, right in line. I mean, this book is kind of going in the mid 60s right now. Now, this is one that I wouldn't have been surprised if it went a little low, just because it doesn't, in my opinion, have the best color strike. I really like this book when it's got like that deep orange, almost red in the background. And this one has a lot more of the kind of this light orange color to it. And so I often, if I'm looking for this book, I'm looking for one that has that deeper orange in the background. But still, you know, solid sale. Went for right around, again, what I thought it would. Now, I'd say one of the big surprises for an outperformer, I did not see this one coming. This was a new record, and a new record by a pretty big amount too. This is Showcase #4, first appearance of the Flash, book that is considered to have started the Silver Age. I had this one going for 30,000. The record was 28,950. Went for 37,200. Beat my estimate by 24%. This is one that, you know, when I pulled in the data and I was looking at the sales numbers, I was not expecting this book to be one of those big outperformers. I mean, it's just kind of been floating along at similar prices for a while now. And this was a really solid sale. And I don't know why. I don't have any reason for why this one really performed. I mean, it's a tough book. It is for Silver Age, it is a rare book. And this is a nice copy. You don't see grades up around this grade coming up very often, but still very strong sale. Now, I'm going to close out with a few more books that were all, you know, big positive surprises, and on a high note. So the first one here, this is another one that I thought I made a comment to my buddy Drew, you know, over at Comics. I thought this one was going to be taken out behind the shed. You know, I thought this was just going to get obliterated. And this was a really solid sale. A 9.8, Tomb of Dracula #10, first appearance of Blade, just with everything that's been going on with Blade, the rewrites and the, you know, just the rumors on the stories and all this. Like, I mean, maybe the fact that the news came out that it was getting a new rewrite and people like that, maybe that helped with it. But I had this one going for 20,000, went for 28,800. Its record was 48,000. I mean, this is one of those books that went nuts during the comic boom, but this was a very solid sale for this book, especially for Bronze Age. I mean, this is a book that's been just generally trending down for a pretty long time now. Like, there's been a lot of negativity on this book. And so having a solid sale like that, I really wasn't expecting it. So you can see, like, if we look at most grades out here, like from the 2021 prices trending down, 9.2 trending down, 9.0 trending down. I mean, a lot of these cut in half, like 47,000 down to 20, or 4,700 down to 24, 33 down to 19, 26 down to 1,600. I mean, just really big drops in prices. Now, when you get up to the higher grades, they don't sell as often. So it's a little tougher to know for sure what they're going to do. But based on how I was seeing a lot of these books get cut in half, I wasn't going to be surprised if this one got cut in half too, you know, and that's why I had it down to 20, but went to 28.8. And if you look at the historical sales for this book, that's not bad. I mean, like in 2020, this book was going for a high of 12,000, 2019, 15,000, 2018, 6,000. That is a really solid sale. Now, yeah, it's the low for the year, but that's holding up surprisingly well. And so this one was a big surprise to me. I thought this book was going to get just killed, and actually held up really, really well. Then another one that did well, just a book that I always like to see come up for sale because it's such a cool book, was X-Men #50. So this is 92164. So X-Men #50. I had this one going for 5,500, went for 7,200. So beat my estimate by 31%. Just this awesome Polaris cover, the Steranko cover. I always like seeing this book come up for sale. Seeing it in a 9.8 is always really cool. It's just such a great cover. And hey, it wasn't even white pages, you know, off white to white pages. Went for 7,200. and just a strong sale. Now, I think during the comic boom, this book went nuts. I believe its record was like 28,000 or something like that. I mean, people were paying some big numbers during that time period. But let's see for sure. Yeah. So there was a pedigree, the Don and Maggie Thompson collection in 2021, December 2021. It went for $28,011. Like that was, yeah, that you're losing some money on that one. But because this is a pedigree too, this is Oakland pedigree. You know, went for 7,200. But yes, really solid sale for that one. And then the last book that I'm going to talk about here is an X-Men book as well. And I've just been talking about X-Men books just getting wrecked in these sales for the last almost like 2 years because they were one of the first ones to really spike. And so it's kind of nice to see them beating my estimates, going for some strong numbers. And it was this one, X-Men number 94, a 9.8, off-white pages. Again, like this is why I generally say page quality is very far down on my list of things that I care about. It just doesn't matter that much. It's the grade, it's the visual appeal of the book. You know, it's the key facts about it. And then at the bottom thing there, in my opinion, is the page quality. Some people, it's very important to them, but the vast majority, it is not. And this is one of those sales that proves it. I had this book going for $29,000, went for $46,800, beat my estimate by 61%. This was a big sale. And let's take a look at X-Men 94, because it did have its record was like 72,000. It had a really big sale during the comic boom. But I mean, look at this. Like this one was already trending down in November of last year. Like this book had been going. I mean, look here, 2018, 2019. This is a $10,000 to $18,000 book in that range. Then 2021, we had the comic boom, huge spike, $63,000 sale, $72,000 sale. Even in 2022, we had a $66,000 sale, but then it had started trending down, $36,000. But this sale, $46,800. I mean, when this ultimately gets pulled in, because it will get pulled in, you're going to see a big turn back up on this book. And I mean, I think that, I don't know if I would have paid that. I think that was a big number paid for this book. And I wouldn't be surprised if one came up again, if it went down again. But and yeah, it's interesting to see some of these books selling for some bigger numbers again. You know, not necessarily records, but not constantly trending down, because with bronze and silver and all of that, that is what we have generally been seeing. And you can see from this auction, from the ones I've sold, we had a lot of books sell right around where I thought they would. And we had some definite records, some big, strong sales. So hope you enjoyed this. I know this was a long video, but there are a lot of books that sold in this. It's just so many cool books to talk about. I probably would have done it as a live, but you know, I didn't have time to go live for this one. So I thought I'd just record it and talk about these different books. But hope you enjoyed this. You know, there's a lot more books coming up for sale in this one on Saturday. So if you want to see that, make sure to, you know, check into Heritage and all that kind of stuff. And you know, if you want to see more videos like this, hit that like button, subscribe button. I've got other videos on the screen here that you can click on if you want to check out some of my other videos. Subscription button should be down in the you know, the right corner, lower right corner. And I will see you in the next video.